Once upon a time, in a vibrant African kingdom, there lived a young and handsome prince named Cody. One evening, after a grand celebration in the palace, Cody drank too much wine. Stumbling through the village, he came across a beautiful maiden named Muji. She was known for being an orphan raised by her uncle. Her uncle sent her to the neighbor's house that evening to buy him some palm wine. However, because he had left them all at his shop, her neighbor urged her to go collect it. Drunk, Cody started following Muji, who was attempting to run away. However, he happened to be faster than her. He caught her, unaware of his actions. He took advantage of her, leaving her humiliated and heartbroken. She wept as she returned home. At the sound of her cries, her uncle raced outside, realizing that someone had perpetrated a horrible atrocity on only child of her late brother. Shocked, he picked up Muji, wrapped her up, and took her straight away to one of the village elders. He brought her niece before the village elder and begged for punishments from the persons responsible for this wicked deed. When they asked her to tell them the person who had hurt her, her uncle and the village elder were shocked to hear her declare, in a weak voice, "It's the prince, Prince Cody, who did this to me." The village elders, outraged by Cody's actions, demanded justice. Muji's uncle, who held great respect in their community, wanted to preserve her dignity. When the king learned of Cody's disgraceful act, he was furious. To avoid a scandal that could tarnish the royal family, as punishment, he decreed that Cody must marry Muji. The prince was horrified by the idea. He couldn't imagine spending his life with someone who is poor and unattractive compared to all the women he had dated, which he found repulsive. Despite his protests, the marriage was arranged, and Cody and Muji became husband and wife. Muji, though deeply hurt and embarrassed by the circumstances that led to her marriage, accepted her fate with grace. She understood the gravity of the situation and the honor she was upholding for her family and village. Despite the whispers and judgmental glances from those around her, she held her head high, determined to carry herself with dignity. Each day, she reminded herself that her worth was not defined by Cody's disdain or the unfortunate events that had transpired. She found strength in her inner resolve and the support of her loved ones. The wedding was a somber affair, lacking the joy and celebration usually associated with such occasions. The royal courtyard, typically adorned with vibrant decorations and filled with the sounds of laughter, felt unusually subdued. While Muji was radiant in her traditional attire, her beauty marred only in the eyes of some by her sad look, the subject of many whispered conversations. Despite her regal appearance, there was a palpable sadness in her eyes. Cody's scowl was unmistakable, his disdain clear to all who attended. The villagers watched with a mix of pity and curiosity, their eyes shifting between the radiant bride and the sullen groom, wondering how this mismatched pair would fare in the days to come. Cody's hatred for Muji grew stronger after the wedding. The union, forced upon him by royal decree, felt like a prison. He avoided her as much as possible, finding solace in long hours away from their shared chambers and engaging in reckless activities. When they did cross paths, he often lashed out with cruel words, his anger and frustration boiling over. "Your presence is a constant reminder of my disgrace," he would sneer, his words cutting deeper than any blade. Muji, on the other hand, remained calm and patient, her eyes reflecting a quiet strength. She focused on her duties as a princess, determined to bring warmth and kindness to their home despite Cody's coldness. Every day, Muji would rise early to prepare meals and take care of the palace, her actions guided by a sense of duty and compassion. She showed kindness to everyone she met, from the palace staff to the villagers who came seeking help. Her generosity and gentle nature won the hearts of many, and whispers of admiration began to circulate among the people. "She has a heart of gold," they would say, marveling at her resilience. But no matter how hard she tried, Cody refused to acknowledge her efforts. He couldn't get past her modesty, which he saw as a constant reminder of his shame and the circumstances that bound them together. Cody made Muji's life in the palace exceedingly difficult in numerous subtle and overt ways. He deliberately excluded her from important discussions and decisions, often holding meetings behind closed doors where she was not welcome. He would host lavish feasts and gatherings without informing her, leaving her to find out from the servants or by stumbling upon the festivities by accident. When Muji did manage to attend, Cody would pointedly ignore her, engaging with others while leaving her to sit alone, feeling like an outsider in her own home. His behavior was intended to deepen the gap between them by making her feel worthless and unworthy of her status as his wife. In private, Cody's cruelty took on a more personal nature. He would criticize Muji's every move, belittling her efforts no matter how well-intentioned or successful they were. If she arranged a special meal, he would find fault with the food. If she decorated their chambers, he would dismiss her choices as tacky and unbecoming of a princess. On more than one occasion, he publicly reprimanded her for minor mistakes, ensuring that the humiliation stung even more deeply. His words were like daggers, meant to cut down her spirit and remind her of his disdain. Despite her efforts to maintain peace and show him respect, Cody's relentless hostility made it clear that he was determined to make her suffer for a marriage he never wanted. Even when Muji gained more respect from others, Cody's hatred for her did not decrease. One night, fueled by anger and frustration, he cruelly took advantage of her again, using his power to dominate and humiliate her. He whispered viciously as he stood over her in her ear, "You think you can win me over with your kindness? You'll suffer every day in this palace, just as I do being married to you." His words were laced with bitterness and spite, leaving Muji feeling even more isolated and broken, her hopes for reconciliation seeming more distant than ever. The tension between them escalated, leading to frequent arguments that echoed through the palace halls. Cody would criticize Muji harshly, his words filled with contempt. "You think you can win me over with your acts of kindness," he would scoff. Though deeply hurt by his harshness, Muji never retaliated. Instead, she chose to respond with kindness, her voice soft and steady. "I only wish to make our home a better place," she would say, her eyes filled with sincerity. Her unwavering patience and humility were both her shield and her offering, as she hoped that her behavior might one day soften Cody's heart, allowing him to see beyond his prejudices. One day, while walking through the village, Cody overheard the villagers talking about Muji. They spoke highly of her kindness, generosity, and the positive changes she had brought to the community. Hearing these words made Cody feel a pang of guilt. He realized that despite his harsh treatment, Muji had continued to do good and earn the respect of everyone around her. Curious, Cody decided to observe Muji more closely. He watched her interact with the villagers, saw how she helped the needy, and noticed the joy she brought to others. For the first time, he began to see Muji for who she truly was, a kind and compassionate woman, not just someone from a poor family that he was forced to get married to because of one unrepairable mistake. Days later, the contempt that Cody had felt began to fade. At first, he hardly noticed the change, but slowly, he found himself less repulsed by her presence. However, there were still moments when the memory of being forced into marriage would flood his mind. These memories would ignite his old anger and resentment. When this happened, Cody would shut himself off, his mood suddenly turning sour and his words harsh. He would avoid Muji, refusing to even look at her, and insist that she leave his sight. "It's because of you that I'm trapped in this marriage," he would say, his voice filled with bitterness. One evening, Cody's frustration reached a boiling point. He cornered Muji in their chambers, his eyes blazing with anger. "What were you doing alone that night?" he demanded, grabbing her arm roughly. "Admit it, you set a trap for me. You seduced me while I was drunk." His harsh words cut deep, and Muji's eyes filled with tears. She tried to explain, but her voice was choked with sobs. Feeling overwhelmed and hurt, she fled the room, not knowing where to go or what to do. Her heart ached with the weight of Cody's accusations and the pain of his rejection. Despite these painful encounters, something began to shift within Cody. He started to notice the way Muji carried herself with grace and dignity, even in the face of his cruelty. Her strength and resilience began to intrigue him. She never retaliated, always choosing to respond with kindness and patience. This unexpected behavior slowly chipped away at the wall of anger he had built around his heart. He found himself reluctantly admiring her inner beauty and unwavering strength. Confused by these feelings, Cody fought against the realization that he was drawn to Muji, not out of duty, but out of genuine affection. The days continued to pass, and Cody found himself more and more captivated by Muji. Her acts of kindness, not just towards him but towards everyone in the palace, were impossible to ignore. She treated the servants with respect, offered help to those in need, and always had a gentle smile on her face. Cody began to see the depth of her character, and it unsettled him. He struggled with his growing feelings, torn between his past resentment and his newfound admiration. Sometimes Cody would catch himself staring at Muji because he was so taken by her grace and serene beauty. Her family background and modesty, which had once been a source of ridicule in his eyes, now seemed to add to her unique charm. Yet, whenever he realized he was admiring her, he would feel a surge of anger and confusion. He hated the fact that he was being drawn to her, feeling as though he was betraying his own emotions. Cody tried to distance himself from Muji, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. He found excuses to spend time with her, though he pretended it was for practical reasons. They would talk about the kingdom, the people, and their duties, but these conversations often led to deeper, more personal discussions. Cody began to learn about Muji's past, her dreams, and her fears. Each new piece of information deepened his respect and affection for her, leaving him even more confused about his feelings. One afternoon, Cody and Muji were walking in the palace gardens. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. They sat by a small fountain, listening to the soothing sound of the water. As they talked, Cody found himself opening up to Muji in a way he never had before. He shared his fears about being a good ruler, his insecurities, and his regrets. Muji listened intently, offering words of encouragement and understanding. For the first time, Cody felt truly seen and understood. He realized that Muji was not just a kind and patient woman, but also someone who could understand him on a deeper level. This realization was both comforting and terrifying. He felt a growing respect and warmth towards his wife, but he was also afraid of these new emotions. He had spent so long hating her that accepting his love for her seemed impossible. That evening, as Cody lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about Muji. Her gentle smile, her kind eyes, and the way she had comforted him stayed in his mind. He realized that he was no longer just tolerating her, he was genuinely fond of her. This newfound affection confused him, but he couldn't deny it any longer. He was falling in love with Muji, and as the weeks went by, Cody gradually began to embrace his feelings for Muji. He stopped pushing her away and started making an effort to show her kindness and respect. He would surprise her with small gestures, like bringing her flowers or spending time with her in the garden. These moments of tenderness brought them closer together, and Cody found himself looking forward to their time together. Muji noticed the change in Cody's behavior and felt a glimmer of hope. She appreciated his efforts and responded with warmth and gratitude. Their relationship, once filled with tension and resentment, began to blossom into something beautiful. They laughed together, shared stories, and supported each other in their duties. Cody's initial hatred had transformed into deep admiration and affection. One evening, Cody took Muji's hand and looked into her eyes. "I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused you," he said softly. "I've been a fool. You are the most remarkable woman I've ever met, and I'm grateful to have you by my side." Tears filled Muji's eyes as she smiled, her heart swelling with love and relief. She had waited so long for this moment, and hearing these words from Cuddy meant everything to her. Who would have thought that the poor orphan she was would become a princess, adored by the magnificent prince that all the young ladies of the kingdom were lusting after? This was unbelievable, an unreal dream. However, it was true and happening right in front of her. At the thought of it, Muji hugged Cuddy so tightly as if she was afraid to wake up from a wonderful dream. With their newfound love and respect, Cuddy and Muji worked together to improve the lives of the people in their kingdom. They became a formidable team, with Cuddy's leadership and Muji's compassion guiding their actions. The people of Tengu Kingdom admired their rulers, inspired by their dedication and love for each other. Cuddy's transformation was evident to all, and the kingdom flourished under their joint reign. Cuddy's love for Muji grew stronger with each passing day. He admired her resilience, her unwavering kindness, and her ability to find joy in the simplest of things. Her social background was now seen by him as a unique quality that contributed to her charm rather than as a weakness. Their love had triumphed over prejudice and resentment, proving that true beauty lies within. Years later, as they stood together on the palace balcony, watching the sunset, while their kids were playing around them, Cuddy held Muji's hand and whispered words of gratitude. "Thank you for teaching me the true meaning of love and beauty," he said. Muji smiled, her heart full of joy, knowing that their love had triumphed against all odds. They had found happiness and fulfillment in each other, and their love story became a legend in the kingdom of Tengu. The story teaches that real love and respect come from being patient, kind, and showing good character. Even though Cuddy treated Muji badly at first, her constant kindness and strength eventually changed his heart. It shows that if you look past first impressions and give people a chance, you can build strong and meaningful relationships. Finally, we would like to state before ending up this film that we do not support any kind of violence against women and children. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect and kindness. If you or someone you know is facing violence, please seek help and support right away. Let's work together to create a safe and caring environment for all. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to get more captivating stories on my African Tales channel.